Hey, welcome to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest, Alan Bishop. Hey, this channel is all about home distilling and legal distilling. If you've got questions, reach out to us in the comments below, social media, or via bishopshomegrown@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out thealchemistcabinet.com. Hey guys, back again with the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute, as you already know from the intro. I don't know why I say that every time I get on here, but I do. Down in the Dungeon of Doom, doing a little bit of work, trying to catch up on some stuff. So checking in, got a few viewer questions here. We're going to start with one from, it's a little hard to see down here. So that's a weird thing about having the cataract surgery. There are days that my eyes are just on point with everything. And there's other days where my eyes drive me insane, particularly if there's like a day or two of overcast weather and then a sunny day. Or a day or two of very sunny weather, and then an overcast day. It really messes with me, and computer screens really mess with me. So some days it's fine, other days just annoying. It's just annoying. Highly don't recommend getting cataracts. But anyways, today I ran. Let's see who it's from here. So Still in Old School, awesome. I didn't realize that's who sent this in. This is awesome. So I love Still in Old School. He does some cool sugar shine stuff that I really enjoy watching, and he actually is one of the ones that inspired me to start doing videos. So thanks for the question, man. So today I ran 2 4-gallon buckets of mash. Both have a ½ pound of grain per gallon of water at 50% yellow dent corn, 25% red winter wheat, and 25% 6-row barley. The corn and wheat was steeped together and the barley added to thin it out. I used 4 pounds store brand sugar in one and 4 pounds of Domino sugar in the other as an experiment. I cut my heads a taste. I took 250 mils of heads from the store brand and only 150 mils from the Domino to get the headsy taste out. The Domino also has way better taste, feel, and flavor. The Domino also made more spirits even after adding the 150 milliliters. I've always heard sugar is sugar, use the cheapest. Are these results in my head because I'm putting them there, or what are your thoughts? I'm repeating it, adding all the back set back to the grain in 1 bucket store brand with 1 with Domino to see how it does with 4 or 5 generations of sour mashing. So, and what Still in Old School is talking about here is the Uncle Jesse's simple sour mash method, where you basically, when you're running moonshine, you run the wash, you leave the grain bed behind, and then after you run that grain bed, or after you run that wash, you take the spent wash from the still or some percentage of that, put it back on the grain bed with fresh sugar, sometimes fresh yeast, but often yeast that's already in there. So it's an interesting question, man. So obviously, you know, like anything, there's different qualities of things out there, and post-COVID some things have changed as well. I don't know if many of you guys remember. If you're new to the hobby, you probably won't remember this, or if you don't mess with sugar shine, you won't remember this. You used to be able to go just about anywhere, JC store, whatever, and they would have 2 different kinds of sugar on the shelf, regardless of brand. Well, not always regardless of brand, but most places like JC, places that would sell baking goods in particular, would have this. So you'd have one brand that was almost always cane sugar, and one brand that was almost always sugar beet sugar. In fact, Michael Stallings, Saint Sparrow as we call him, my good buddy Moonshine Mike, he specifically was using sugar beet sugar for his sunflower recipes. And when I got those recipes from him during COVID, etc., I got to a point where I couldn't find sugar beet sugar anymore. And once I started looking into it, I think Justin Whaley and I looked into it, we found out there was a brand that still is available just as sugar beet sugar, and pretty much all the other brands are commonly a blend of sugar beet sugar and sugar cane sugar. Now the reason for that is because, as you said in this particular comment, you know, a lot of people think sugar is sugar. Well, commodity people definitely think that sugar is sugar, and so they don't care whether it's sugar beet or sugar cane. It's all the same to them. It's a commodity, bulk it up, sell it off, etc. I'd have to do some research on Domino, and I'll be honest with you, I've not done it before recording this video because I just came down here and just started in on it. So I can't say this for sure, but I would suspect that Domino is probably a higher quality sugar, just in general, than whatever your excuse me, whatever your typical sugar is that you're getting from the store. Right? Domino's a name brand. They've got to uphold that name. They've got to uphold that quality. I would be interested in seeing if, you know, the specific gravity between the two. Are you getting the same specific gravity between those 2 different sugars, and how that plays out, because that would explain the yield difference. Now, the heads cut on Sugar Shine is interesting. because there really shouldn't be a ton of heads on sugar shine to start with. There's some, but you don't make a ton of methanol off of, because there's not cellulosic material in there to make methanol off of, at least presumably. I was talking about 4 shots there. I apologize. I confused myself. Anyways, there's no cellulose there to make methanol off of. You can make acetaldehyde ethyl acetate, which is heads, but it shouldn't be nearly as much as, say, an all fruit or an all grain or anything of that nature. Sorry, I confused myself there for a moment. But I suspect that if one of those sugars was of a lower quality, there's probably some impurities in there. Maybe some stuff that's not even pure sugar, and so therefore you're not getting it to actually ferment and turn into alcohol, would be my guess. But the only way to really test that would be to test your specific gravity before starting and test your specific gravity after the fermentation is finished. But interesting observation that your head's cut was cut in half by using a higher quality, well, let's presume a higher quality sugar. It doesn't really surprise me, but it's not really something I've thought of, because I think a lot of us do have that in our head. Hey, sugar, just run with it. I know that taste-wise, there is a difference between beet sugar and sugarcane sugar, particularly in fermentation, because I've experienced that myself many times, as did Mike Stallings. You know, Mike didn't always use the sugar beet sugar, but with the sunflower in particular, he used sugar beet sugar. With other things, he used cane sugar. And that's because he was getting different qualities from each of those 2 different sugars, depending on the fermentation and the style of sugar that it was. So it doesn't really surprise me, man, but that's a great question and something to really think about and maybe do some more research on. And if you would, as you're experimenting with that, let me know what you observe as well, still in old school. And I hope you get some more videos up soon, man. I really enjoy watching your stuff. So you'll have to excuse me tripping over the 4 shots and heads commentary a while ago. That happens sometimes. You know, I spend all day at work, and when I'm not at work, I'm probably working on something like this, or if you have Ghost, You Have Everything podcast or Distillers Talk, and sometimes I just have too much shit rolling around up here. So I do apologize there. Let me see if I've got another short question here. I think all the rest of them I've got are fairly long questions. So I think what I'll do here is a good buddy of mine, Bob from Costa Rica, asked me not too long ago to maybe share some stories of problems, mistakes, dumb things that have happened at the distilleries I've worked at over the years. And I do have a ton of those, and I can start working those into some videos here and there. So most of them are not technical mistakes, although there are some technical mistakes. The biggest mistakes that I've ever seen are all just human error, not really with fermentation or with distillation necessarily, but mechanical error. So there's a joke around spirits of French lick, and also it was at Copper and Kings as well, that, you know, valves are important. So I think people take this for granted, but I have seen a lot of liquor put down the drain or on the floor, either in the form of mash and or low wines and or even finished spirit, because somebody forgot to check a particular valve. I can think of multiple instances at Copper and Kings and multiple instances at Spirits of French Lick. Now, some of those are more expensive than others. Luckily, knock on wood, I have not pulled the valve maneuver, but I've seen it pulled by multiple people, including owners. I also saw it pulled by someone at Copper and Kings, which of course is a brandy distillery. Now, bear in mind that making a barrel of brandy costs about 10 times what making a barrel of bourbon does, because of the raw material, and depending on the grape, it can be a little bit more expensive than that. I did see a distiller at Copper and Kings one time go to pump a still with 1,000 gallons of Muscat low wines, which that's some money sitting there, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was downstairs and I was on a tour, and he was pumping, and he pumped from the basement at Copper and Kings up into the stills, and he didn't bother to go up and check his valve. And as I'm doing this tour with these people, I'm in what was called the barrel room or the gauging room at the time, and I hear something that just sounds like a waterfall. What the hell is that? Right now, the cellar is underneath the main production floor at Copper and Kings, and so that's where they keep, you know, their barrels and all that stuff. And I run around the corner of that gauging room, and I look over, and it looks like a waterfall of low wines. What had happened was he didn't close that valve on that still before he started pumping. He pumped all that stuff straight through the still and out the bottom valve and onto the concrete floor up above, and it was seeping through the concrete cracks in the floor and making a waterfall of brandy, the world's most expensive waterfall, as it were. So A, that's embarrassing. B, that was a lot of money down the drain. But I've also seen people go to pump low wines into a still to double distill and leave the, you know, at Spirits of French Lick, this happened one time. no names included, nobody works there now, so and it was handled appropriately at the time, but I've seen the valve on the still left open there, people just pump it right down the drain. I have, at least on 2 occasions, seen people go to pump mash from the cooker into the fermenter and forget to close the bottom valve, and one of those was somebody who was an owner. You know, and when you're over there watching the cooker, watching it pump out, all you see is the cooker moving. If you didn't walk around and check the valve, or you didn't walk over to the fermenter that you're pumping into, hell, it could be going right down the floor drain, and that's what it did both times, right? 600 gallons, 2 separate occasions of mash, 2 different people did that. So I think my favorite mistake was we had a gauging tank at Copper and Kings to get stuff ready for blending and bottling. Well, there were multiple gauging tanks, but we had a couple of small ones. And why they put these in, I don't really know. They were 500 gallons a piece, I think, if I remember right. And a guy that I grew up with, 2 guys I grew up with, pumped some brandy into those gauging tanks, and they went to go aerate those tanks to mix everything together. Well, they put 1 more barrel than they should have in there. So it was already, you know, sitting fairly high up in the tank. Lid was open on the tank, and they hit the air sparge in order to introduce some air and blend everything together in the tank. Well, the minute they did, myself and one of the other gentlemen were standing roughly in that same area, and I remember looking up and seeing what I would describe as an aged brandy tidal wave, and I just happened to be able to step about a foot out of the way. Now, the guy that hit the air sparge that was standing on the other side, because I was over there checking the proof, is what was going on with me, he couldn't get moved out of the way, and I mean, he just got drenched in alcohol. And you know, the only thing you can do at that point, because you're absorbing it through your skin, through your eyes, etc., get the dude something to eat and let him take a little nap. So there's a couple little distillery fuck ups for you that you can enjoy and laugh at. There's plenty more, and I'll try to include some in some videos in the coming future. So as always, guys, leave your questions at bishopshomegrown@gmail.com, and or via social media or via the YouTube comments below. Thanks for supporting the channel. We really appreciate it, and we love you very much.